excited to be here to do
My name
this.
is Laura Foster.
Guitar player extraordinaire slash resident fun guy at Northside Baptist
Trio Quinn. I'm actually Charlie's cousin.
Neil Baker. Eddie.
Baines Blanton. I'm a junior at Lowndes High
Drew
School.
Peterson. I'm a student at Lowndes High School.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you on today. If you could introduce yourself and we'll just keep on going.
My name is Jack Ortmeyer. I've been going here for about a few years. Right now, I am 15 years old. I'm in the student ministry, and I'll be talking about the
Missions.
missions.
Missions here at Northside. Yeah, you're good, man. So, if you could just tell a little bit of your testimony, and how you came to Northside, that'd be great, and we'll just move on to questions.
All right, that sounds good. So I was Sorry.
You're good.
I was at Perimeter Road when I got saved. I was in the car with my mom, and I don't know which song it was, but there was a song that came on, and just like I don't know what happened. I just know like I needed to get things right with the Lord.
Yeah, hit you like a freight train, didn't it?
Yeah. And so we got into the kitchen, and I said, "Hey, Mom, I want to become a Christian." And so she sat me down. We read a few verses, and then I said the sinner's prayer. And then a few months later, I got baptized. And I came to Northside because of my sister, who was invited, I think, by Daniel or someone else.
Daniel's a go-getter. I've heard that from a lot of people.
Yeah.
That Daniel was just like, "Hey, you come to Northside. Hey, you come to Northside. You too." Like, so that's really cool.
At first, and this was during the COVID, I think when everything was starting to.
So it was different, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't. If I'm being totally honest, I did not want to move churches because
You're used to it. You're comfortable.
Yeah, because I practically grew up at that church, so it was a big step for me because I did not know anyone, and I was just. It was. Yeah,
it was scary.
Yeah.
I mean that's the same thing with anything. Like if you're moving houses, moving anything. Like, you don't know anybody, and it's really daunting, especially with your church family. You're like, I don't want to leave them because they're, I know these people, I like them, and then that can be really scary. So I get that, for sure. But so you come to Northside, because of your sister, or because your sister was invited. So then, and you get in. So then, what's your experience for Northside been like since, has it obviously it's changed because with you starting during that COVID year, me and my mom were actually discussing this in the car on the way here. It's, they had to do services online full time. And so, you really didn't know what, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but did you really know what a Northside service looked like until the next year, so 2021, you really saw it?
Not entirely. I think when we started to come, because we saw ones online, but I think this was during when we're starting to ease back into actual services. And so my experience with that, I've really enjoyed, at first, obviously, me being new to this whole place, I dreaded it.
Yeah.
I'm not, trying to...
Yeah, just be honest, You're good.
And so, it was very new to me, and I just wanted to avoid it, because, I did not like change at all during that time.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm weird about that. If I left here now, I'd be like... Pastor Robbie, come back. It'd be weird. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I think one of the first few friends I've had here was Avery. And
Bellinger?
Yes. And so since we were friends, we're still friends now, but he helped me through that, whether he knows it or not, he helped me through that kind of transition. And then once we got rid of the whole COVID services and all that, I started to become more involved when Pastor Landy took over with the youth, and I've enjoyed it. And this year I've met a lot of new friends. And so God's been really growing this church, and
And that's evident to see. We went, I think we have over 1,000 members now?
Yes.
Which, that's crazy. To think about, too, we're not one-sided when it comes to age either. Yeah. You have, you got youth, you have older people, you have younger adults. And you have the smallest little kid running around. So there's a variety of people, and a lot of I've always wondered too, when a decision gets made, it's got to be so hard because you maybe, the numbers of the staff's maybe 25, 24-ish people, and they've got to make the decisions for 1,000 people, especially Pastor Robbie. And I've always wondered my gosh, like that's got to be a lot. You've got to be in a prayer a lot,
Yeah.
like because I would be scared out of my mind. Like, what if I made? I mean, I don't want to say like, oh, you have to bend over to everybody, but you don't want like to make a decision that would just make so many people mad, whatever. So I can totally understand that. But when it comes to like involvement, you've been, you were talking about your friends, right? That you've met. How'd you meet Micah?
Okay, so I knew Micah from Perimeter. So we had a camping and glamping at their house. The girls did the glamping. We did the camping.
Yeah.
And so we were at their house. They hosted it, and I don't entirely remember everything. I just knew it was his house because we played Manhunt and different games, and we played Sardines. And so that's how I met him. But I didn't like fully know him.
Yeah, you just knew of him. Yeah.
Yes, and then I think it was at D Now. He saw me and said, "Hey, are you Jack?" And I said, "Yes." And I did, and I said, "Do I know you?" And he said, "Yeah, we went to Perimeter together," and that kind of clicked. And, and so we've been friends for a while. I just didn't know it.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Like me and Baines kind of had a similar thing. Like except we didn't meet each other at an event or whatever. We met at school, and we met at like this one club or whatever. And then we find out because they had the open house for the new building, and everybody's walking around with their parents and stuff like that. And me and my parents were in like the technology lab or the woodworking and all that area. And he comes in there with his parents, and they my mom introduces herself to his mom, and she says and I left it on the story. It's crazy. Like she says, "Oh, my name's Bebo," and she's like, "Bebo? Like I only know one person that's named Bebo." And it turns out our moms knew each other 30 years ago because they went to Lowndes together and they were friends.
Wow.
And they met as bridgemen, like they were on the dance line and stuff, so they met kind of in a similar fashion. And I'm like, God, what in the world? That's crazy. Like stuff like that blows my mind. Like, and now they're talking all the time now.
That's good.
And like it's crazy to think now. You say with Micah or like Avery, somebody now you're like. Now you don't know what life would be without them, right?
Yeah.
Like they're or I say that with just like Northside in general. I'm like, well, all these people that I met, what would I do, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, because we were up here. What I mean, I don't know how much of your life you're up here, but I mean, we're both up here a pretty good bit, and I wouldn't want to fill it with anything else. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't. So where did you go on your first mission trip? And was there anything that you were scared about when going? Because like. I can imagine, you went, 4,000, 5,000 miles away?
Yeah, we went to Argentina in the spring of 2023. I want to make sure I got that right.
Yeah.
And I wasn't too scared. The only thing... Alright, so one thing I was kind of scared about is TSA. They're not mean, but like they just yell.
Yeah.
And it's just... I don't know how to explain it, but it's just that kind of like, alright, everyone make sure you have everything out of your bag. Make sure it's just a rush.
It's really and I'm like I don't like being like pressured or rushed into things. Yeah, but like for me, I know like like when that's brought up, I'm like, oh my gosh, 4,000. Like that would be the part that would freak me out. Like because I've not been. I mean, I've been out of the state, of course, but I'm not out of the country.
Yeah.
I know that's like a big thing for everybody, but like was that something you had to kind of overcome a little bit, or was that something that was just like, oh yeah, that's happening? Like,
I really didn't fear it much. It was just a new experience for me, and so I knew that God was taking care of everything, so I just gave it to Him. Yeah,
and I know it was a little while ago, but do you remember some like the results that came out of that? I know there was a lot. I just don't remember what.
I don't know how many. There were definitely quite a bit who got saved, and a few that were baptized at the different places we went.
And did you have to? So you had translator student.
Yes, we did.
So was that also an adjustment too? That you had to kind of like you had to speak, and then you got somebody speaking right after you, and then you have to wait for them to say that. So like you couldn't go on to your next thought. You had to hold on to it. Was that like a kind of a thing to get adjusted to?
Sort of, but I think after a bit, because like they speak very fast, so they can easily pick it up. So as I'm saying something, they're saying it at the exact same time.
Right.
So there wasn't too much confusion, and it was much easier to like, even if we had to break it up, it was just the sentence. It was just fine.
Yeah. And so did you have to? I know there was some that did. Did you have to give your testimony at one point at one of the nights? I know some people did. I just don't know if everybody, I know that I don't think everybody did they?
No, I don't think everyone did. I did not.
Yeah. And so were they giving it? They were just giving it in English, and they had the translator, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Because I know that on this mission trip there in Mexico now, I was wondering if like some of the adults, if they're gonna have to give it in Spanish, and I'm thinking to myself, I would stutter just in saying it in English. Like, imagine trying to say it in Spanish, like in a whole other language you don't, you're not as familiar with. But for sure, I've thought about it as well, and also I'd like to do some more mission trips, like just in the U.S., like because of course, everywhere in the world needs the gospel, needs to hear it, and I'd love to do some more in the U.S. as well, because sometimes, like the word church is like kind of scary for people, but if we go out and show them what Jesus is all about, and we go out there and actually they're like, oh my gosh, they care if they're coming all the way from, say if we like went to Boston like the college does, and we're coming all the way from Boston, they're like, these people must really care if they're coming all the way from South Georgia just to go talk with us or talk with these people. And so that's kind of something that's been on my heart recently, is like, I want to find that balance between, broad mission trips and then ones here, because I mean, you can, for people listening, you can be on mission with God right here or wherever you're living at.
Exactly. Yes.
Whether it's in your school, job, whatever, you don't have to go 4,000 miles away, even though that's a great opportunity, though.
Yes, it is.
So, why do you think it's important for people to go on mission trips?
I believe it's important that people to go on mission trips because it's actually Pastor Robbie preached on. I forgot it was titled different things, but it's what the verse that they used was Matthew 9, verse 37 through 38. And I'm going to read it. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest and to send out laborers into his harvest." And that just really caught my heart, because you just think of all these different countries, like we may be the only ones to even come in contact with them,
right? Yeah,
and with the gospel, and so it's just like, it's not in the sense of, I'm trying to make sure I'm wording this correctly, but to where like we could, all right, so this is not going to really sound correct, but it could be our fault for someone not knowing the gospel.
Yeah, if you don't tell them, then
yes.
But you had that opportunity,
yes.
Right? I kind of get what you're saying there. So and I've thought about that. Like, I imagine all the times, like wherever you're at again, like you could have said to someone, told them about the gospel, and you didn't, and they get to the gates and are like, well, nobody told me about it, and then that just let that sit there for a minute, like, oh my gosh, like I didn't tell that person, and now they're not going to be in heaven with Jesus, right? And so if that is that kind of what you were getting for? Yeah, you're good, man. So was there any cool moments that you can remember from that mission trip that just really stands out? As in, like if whether it be somebody like responding to something you said, or like just a baptism, like anything that was just kind of like just maybe as a group, like not just you, but was there anything as a group that kind of stood out for you guys, like say like on the plane ride back, you were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened, or
I have a terrible memory. I can't.
No, you're good. You're good.
I know there's definitely. All right, so one thing I didn't. So it was on the bus. It was on the. I forgot which day it was, but it was a long day, and one of the translators, I think. So we had different translators. We had his name was Nicholas, and we had another one, Nico, I think. And we said our testimonies to each other, and one thing I didn't realize it, but it's just not in the sense they're similar, but hold up. It was just really neat that we were sharing each other's testimony. It was just out of the blue. It was just like,
right,
because I will say my testimony. It's just I'm more kind of nervous when talking about it with others, because it's just, to me, I kind of quote unquote like sort of fear people's judgment. Yeah, and it's just I don't want to be the quote unquote outcast, but I know that
there's other people that have experienced the same thing. Yes, and that's one cool thing that's here. That's cool to hear, is like, oh my gosh, like I wasn't the only one, but here's the thing, Satan wants you to feel that way. Yes, and that's what he always does when I go to try to tell mine, or anybody's, like, when I get that, like, for sure, it's like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think? Well, what can that do to help somebody? We got to think about that instead of what are people going to think, rather than switch that mindset and be like, okay, how can this help somebody? Because that's one thing for sure is I thought, somebody, oh my gosh, I'm the only one that's done this thing, whatever it was, and turns out there's, hundreds if not thousands that have done it, and they feel the same exact way. And so that was on the bus on the way back, right? You were like, all of you were like, so, or was that just, you said it was on one of the days, right?
It was on one of the days we were going back to the camp we were staying at.
I got you. And so, like, didn't you guys, maybe this was another mission trip, I'm not really sure. I thought I remember hearing this, but this was, again, it was a while ago. That you guys were, like, sharing each other's testimonies in when you were talking in, like, the bus and stuff. I thought, well, yeah, that's cool, too. And so you got to learn more about your peers and stuff, too, which I can also, of course, grow your relationships when you get back. And that's one thing about this that I've learned, too, that there's some people that I've not really talked with at all. Like, I know we've talked a little bit, but not much. But I'm sure now we'll just, like, be, like, talking like crazy because that's happened with so many people. Like, I'm trying to think of somebody that I didn't talk to as much, but now I talk to him more. I think probably Shadley, too. Shadley Hurst, talked to him a bit more, too. And so it's just great to hear. And, like, Noah Jenkins, he was telling me that there's so many things that he learns about his church people from it, Yeah. And, like, he's like, wait, that happened? I'm like, yeah, I didn't expect it either, And I don't know if you've heard me talk about it, but I've had some people cry on it before, and it's kind of awkward. But I get it, you get emotional, but I'm sitting there, I'm just got to sit there and just go, okay, let it out. Like, like it's kind of awkward at one point, but it's all good though. So when it comes to questions about the youth, and we're going to go, you can either go general or, kind of mix in the Northside youth with just general, When you look at the youth, do you see hope, or are you worried about the future?
I'm not entirely worried about the youth because we see numbers growing, and especially with like not only the youth, I've seen the college grow, and from when I was going, those a lot, and there's still a lot of kids coming, and that's really good because the more we get, the ability we have to
spread the gospel is a lot bigger when you have way more numbers. Like, for one thing, I saw that, what was it? It was that Watt Adventures conference they had.
The Move conference.
It was like, I don't know how many got saved and all that, but I know there was like 400 that responded to the gospel, and I'm like, huh? What? Like, that's crazy. And I'm thinking to myself, out of all the places you could have had it, was Watt Adventures, and they responded, And I know they did it now because of the big stage there for the concert venue, but I just happened to be there that night. I was looking at the lights and stuff, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, so, I didn't even know they were doing that.
I didn't. Because I heard about it from David Williams because he was there too that night, and he was like, "Yeah, they're doing on the Move conference." And I'm like, "What's that?" Like, I was really confused. Yeah. But he was there because of the BCM and all that, and then I looked at like the article they posted, and I was like, over 400 kids responded. That's how many kids were in there. Like, well, I don't know how many churches were there that night because I know that we pulled up and there was like so many like different Baptist church fans. I was like, something's going on, but there's not a concert. Yeah. That's what I thought when we pulled up because, most of the time when you see all those like, church fans, I'm like, oh, there's a concert somewhere, but there's not a concert because it's the fall.
And even the parking lot with like just the normal cars, it was packed.
Dude, we were all on the grass. Like, we were coming in here with our me and Mom coming with the season passes. No, we had to park on the grass. Yeah. Like, I'm glad we ain't got to pay for parking anymore because $18 to park. That's crazy. Yeah. Like, no. And if they raise it again, people are gonna start crying. Yeah. But yeah, that was like really cool to see, like, especially with being here right in Valdosta. Like, it could have been anywhere else, but they decided to have it here in Watt Adventures in Valdosta. And just to think we were like not even like not far from it. It's like all that was going on. Yes. And we're just over here, just, eating ice cream and all that, like riding on rides and not. There's some stuff happening right here. And I thought about going in there, but I didn't know if you needed like a...
If you need a pass.
Yeah, because I wasn't there for that. I was planning on just kind of sneaking in, looking in the back and see, but I don't know. I wouldn't want to stand for that long either. Yeah. But, so what advice would you give to young people who are struggling, skip one, sorry. But there's, a lot of stuff that we face, right? Young people face in today's world, like, with social media, things like that. Yeah. A lot of stuff that parents, they're like, what in the world are you, is going on, right? With all these different challenges. So what if somebody was struggling? What advice would you give them? If they were struggling in this world to navigate this world in a biblical way.
I'd say don't be afraid to ask for help, because I feel like that's what I struggle with as well, because I get too cocky to say that, oh, I can do that,
yeah.
but then realize, and then see how it goes belly up, and realize God's way is much better.
Mm-hmm.
And so don't be afraid to ask other people for help, because they've, especially your parents, because they may not go through the exact same thing, but they've gone through something that can be correlated to it.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing I've realized, especially after, of course, it's not 100% accurate, but watching like a film like Jesus Revolution, I don't know if you watched it or not.
That's a really good movie.
But that was done in the 70s. Like all that happened in the 70s, but those kids were going through the same exact stuff that we do now, but just in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's weird for me to think nothing's changed. Sin is sin. People are still going through the same stuff that we've always gone through, but it's just altered a little bit because of social media and technology, and that's it. I'm sitting there thinking, well, you would think by now we would have come up with a solution, but I'm like, and people, need to realize that, because one thing I know the film harps on, people are just searching for the truth, just all in the wrong places. And, in some capacity, I do think that is true for a lot of people. Not all of them, but, some might just be, some might just be like whatever. But, some are for sure. Because, if you're trying to, find ways to, please yourself and these different types of things like drugs and things like that, you're looking for something.
Yes.
Just in a wrong place. And eventually, it's going to lead you to Jesus in some way. Me personally, I think so. But, it's not on the list here, but, because you got a Valdosta, is there any challenges that it's at Lowndes too, but, when you're trying to, maybe invite somebody to a D now or, spread the gospel there, is there any challenges that you've kind of run into?
Some challenges I've kind of seen through is that, even if in our own FCA, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, I do believe some of them are Christians, but they don't act like they how they should. They're living in I'm not trying to
they're one person in FCA and they're another in the school. Yeah. Yes.
And so it's just you're contradicting yourselves, and we're supposed to be the
light of the world, or light, showing Jesus' light, right? Yes. And I've wondered that just in Lowndes and Valdosta, who is it I'm praying that these are actual Christians coming in, or if it's not, if it's somebody inviting a friend in, if they're actually getting something out of it, because you don't know, and that's the same with the church service, you don't know, you hope so, you pray that it's happening, but I know one thing for sure that we at Lowndes did, because we used to have it in the aux gym, and then we moved it into the pack room, into the PAC, because people were coming in and getting food and leaving, and we were like, no. We're going to move into the pack room because you can't have food in the pack room. And so you have to listen and worship. And then, you have to get your food afterwards. That's what we started
doing, to where, you come in, and then after, you get your biscuit, or whatever it is.
Yeah. And didn't you help, I think, was it last year? I thought, or it might have been, no, it was this year. Well, technically last year now. You helped Noah and Daniel when you were there. Yeah, I thought so, because I saw I was like, oh my gosh, hey, there's Jack's name right there. Yeah, that's cool. So how was that having your youth pastor come and talk at your school?
As in
with Noah coming, and was that just something different, because of course you see him in the setting of here all the time. Was there any was there a difference, him coming, and or was it just kind of the same?
I feel like it was just kind of the same. It was just different because instead of us inviting them, we're still inviting them, but it's in the sense we're bringing church to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I know that he'll try to. It's funny. Sometimes I'm kind of sitting in the front, and I look back and I'm Noah's there. They might get us. Some of the pastors just kind of show up at some of the FCAs, and I see Noah in the back. I'm like, I didn't expect to see you here right now. Okay. And there was one time where I didn't see him, and he just came and sat right next to me, and I was like, Well, he's here now, and he kind of scared me because I was like just talking with somebody, and I turned my head, and there he is right there. He kind of like sneaks up on you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay then. But that's all the questions I have. But if there's anything you want to add or anything, words of encouragement or prayer, anything, don't matter to me. No? Okay. Well, I thank you so much for your time. And
Thank you for being on here.
yeah, man. And like I mentioned with Micah earlier, we're gonna have him on next week. And so, but I can't wait to see what God's gonna do with this. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yep. With another episode of the Young Minds Podcast coming to a close, I just want to remind you that you are never alone and faith is action. So let's get out there.